You're listening to the Exponential Entrepreneur Podcast. This is the podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs who understand that exponential business growth isn't achieved through traditional business tactics alone, but through personal development, the ultimate leverage point to scale businesses beyond conventional limits. Hosted by Erica Ferenzi, featuring lessons from the Practical, Profitable Mindset program, created by R. John Robbins, Alejandra Leibovich, Erica, and Oscar Ferenzi. And here's your host, Erica Ferenzi.
Hello, everyone. Today we have with us Josephia Rouse. For over a decade, she has defined herself as an attorney and the founder of Divorce with a Plan. Her career was fueled by a personal mission seeking truth after family tragedy, which allowed her to build a successful firm that prioritized strategy over emotion. However, the ultimate test of an entrepreneur is knowing when to evolve. Right now, at the present moment, she is not practicing law and she is focusing on her entrepreneurial career. Today, she is not Josephia, the attorney. She is simply Josephia, a person who understands that true success lies in having the courage to build something real and the discipline to know when to close that chapter and start a new one. When she is not exploring this new phase of her life, she's usually spending time with the family that inspired her name and her journey. It is such a pleasure to have you with us, Josephia, today. Thank you so much for being on the show.
It's an honor to be here, Erica. A true honor.
Oh. I have known Josephia, I don't even know for how many years. How many years have I known you for, Josephia?
5.
5 years, yes. So
Yes.
5 years, and we have been together and with others, of course, but with ups and lows. And I met you at a very initial moment of your entrepreneurial career, right? And it's been such an honor to see how you have shined and grown and all of the things that you have achieved. And what has been more amazing, all of those achievements are phenomenal. Don't get me wrong, right? Growing a business to several $1 million in such a short amount of time is amazing. But for me, what has been a pleasure to watch is how you have transformed through the process. You're definitely not the woman that I met 5 years ago. So welcome to the show. And would you like to share a little bit of your journey?
So thank you, Erica. I would love to. I think it's interesting to have evolved and grown so much over the last 5 years and to take the time to discuss what it is, the concepts that mean so much more to me now than what they meant when I first learned them. And that's the biggest part about being an entrepreneur. We are the individuals that live in this life and we look at obstacles and we look at things and we fix the problems that are right in front of us. And I've always been great at doing that. I'm originally from South Carolina. I left home when I was 17 years old, went to undergraduate, did that by myself, got through law school by myself, wanted to be a lawyer because my sister was killed. Her body was found 400 miles away from her car and her death was deemed a suicide. So that has always been the story of why it was always important for me to solve problems. But along this journey that started for me 5 years ago, I've evolved to not only want to solve problems, but to have a desire to have a great life. And that is the permission that I've learned over time, right? We have a lot of concepts that you've taught me and you've taught others. And that permission is one that I believe in deeply now because of one of the most famous sayings, right? To know and not to do is not to know. And so along this journey of making a decision to start my law career because of what had happened to my sister and because of a feeling of, unjust outcomes, a feeling of hopelessness and wanting to live a life where I did not feel like that in the future, it got me to a point, right? It got me through undergraduate school by myself. It got me through law school by myself. And then I have evolved to want a lot more, which, that journey began 5 years ago. So did law school. I began a career as a solo practitioner in Baltimore, Maryland. I was a general practitioner at first, and I wanted to become an expert because I found that helping people understand their divorce, understand the new family beginnings that they would have if they did it right, and if they had support along the way, I was really helping people and providing value. Like I, love that I was an advocate in the court, but I also brought real common sense to conversations in my office where people could see a future. And as you grow a business, you grow the needs of your clients, you need to grow systems. And that's when the journey for me started with how to manage. So that's how I got to how to manage about 5 years ago, wanting to make sure that I wasn't just a fighter, but I was an effective fighter that helped people truly every time.
That's just such a phenomenal story. And don't get me wrong, everyone has a truly amazing story, but your story really has been one of just overcoming and overcoming and overcoming. And I think that you and I have spoken about it in some occasions, how, what life is. And it's just this process of like, hopefully, right, we overcome, but then every time we overcome higher, right, overcome forward. And, one thing that I want to ask you is just, I'm thinking about the regular person that is maybe watching this podcast, and I think I can think about two different parts. So I'm going to ask you this in two different questions. The first one is, when you just started, when you decided to hang your shingle, and how, like, so many people, I can just think like so many people want to start a business. And they wish they would, and they wish they could make the money, and they don't do it because of fear or insecurity or whatever, which I'm pretty sure that you did feel at that moment. What helped you just to make the decision and say, you know what, let's just move forward?
I'm a little bit of a more extreme person. And if clarity is not in the decisions that I'm making, those decisions are going to lead me down depression. It's kind of like black and white. Before, at that time, it was black and white for me. And I made a decision that I wanted to have a career where I actually help people, and I wasn't dictated by what others thought would be the best way to help people. So if I had gone to another individual's law firm and I disagreed with how I was interacting in a person's life, it would not have given me the motivation to want to wake up in the morning and work a 16-hour day. It wouldn't have not given me the clarity of thought or allowed me to sleep well at night. So that decision was that if I was going to interface with people, I was going to interface with people on my terms, and I was going to help them on my terms. And that has always been my biggest motivator. Once I decide how I want to interact or how I want to do something, if I have the clarity of thought, the rest of it I'm doing. And I think that a lot of times when we're on the precipice of a decision, we allow confusion to come in. And that's where you always teach, go down to the depth of why you're doing what you're doing. And so at the time, my why was clear. I wanted to have integrity in the relationships that I was creating with people, because that's what I wanted for my sister, right? So the police detective that deemed her death a suicide, well, maybe that was a way to just get that case through. Or maybe that was a way that this case, wasn't going to be solved, right? So she may not have intentionally been doing something wrong to me, but where is the integrity that I'm a police detective and I want to make sure that there's an answer and there is resolve and clarity in the relationship that I have with people. So I had a why, and that why was clear, and that why allowed me to work hard for people for, an extended amount of time until I needed to start to work and do some things for myself.
Wow, that's such a great answer. Such a great answer. Thank you so much. We know that you have participated in the Practical Profitable Mindset Program, PPM, for several years now. What would you say that is or has been through those years? Because this is not something that happens, just overnight. What inspired you to join, and how it has it transformed your life?
So what inspired me to join was a decision that I made about relationships. So at the time that I joined, I'd been in How to Manage for about 2 years. And I told Arjan this December 31st of the first full year of PPM, I began to have reciprocal, honest relationships with people I saw honest and reciprocal relationships with people when I started at How to Manage. And it's sad that that was the first time that I'd seen what happens when things go wrong and how do you deal with it? What happens when you may not like what someone does, but you have a belief system that they have 100% personal responsibility for their life and that they can make a decision to do better? What happens when we just don't dismiss people, right? You know, How to Manage has had hiccups. I have had hiccups, but along the way, there's a deep why. And that why is something that you can't just create. And so when PPM came along, I wanted to continue to explore, how do I learn how to have good relationships with people in a way that I can still make my mistakes, they can make their mistakes. And it's not a fake coming back together. A lot of times in relationships, people acknowledge that a mistake has happened. They acknowledge that a problem has happened. They acknowledge that something has occurred, but there's the underlying stench that we really didn't resolve, a problem. And so How to Manage taught me, you go deep into the problem. You have criteria about a problem. You have criteria about what you want. And PPM taught me that it's a daily decision to have an orientation of a creator. Wink, wink, Ted.
Yeah.
But it's a muscle that you build, and that when you're around people that are building that muscle, the trust that you build is exponential. I think being an entrepreneur and having the ability to trust your circumstances, your relationships, your situation to a point, right? There's still always going to be that risk, but trust certain systems, you're able to move forward with clarity a lot more. So I decided to move forward with PPM when I wanted to build that muscle of how do you build good relationships with people. It's given me a lot more. The evolution of PPM has been a daily understanding that going over the criteria of your life, going over the orientations of how you present yourself to yourself and to the world is a daily thing. It's not a weekly thing where you read a book and you learn a concept and then you just talk about it, in tangent. It is this thing where you approach life as it hits you in all the different ways. And you say to yourself, I want more from this life, not I'm just trying to get through this life and make as little mistakes as possible. And so this orientation is built over time. Trust is built over time. And the trust that I thought I was going to get from, relationships with HTM, I built trust in myself in that relationship with myself. Let me give you some tangible examples, right? I don't want to be a bad lawyer. I don't want to be a bad business person. I want to be a great leader. I want my firm to provide great value. I want to be a great mom, like on a personal side, right? I don't want to, I don't want my kids to, have a bad life. I want to be a great mom. I want them to explore a great life. I want them to understand how to describe and have criteria for a great life. And though that orientation over time is a muscle that has been built, when I get sad, the sadness has a criteria. Is this really a danger? Is this really a problem? Is this really something that I don't have the capacity to handle? And if it is something I don't have the capacity to handle, do I have a right, and this is me talking to myself, to just sit in this problem and destroy everything I have in my life? And I don't give myself that right. So it's been a beautiful muscle with every obstacle that you can imagine that's come up in my life, death, sickness, financial. And my approach to it has been like, I love the person that I am as I am creating this life a little bit more every day.
Oh my goodness. I love so much of everything you said. And I'm going to try to make just a few points. I think that what I hear you say is that you went from a person that made decisions, or their main focus was in what you do not want. I don't want this. I don't want that. I'm running away from the other, right? And really doing that transformation into what do I really want and why do I want what I want, and just kind of pursuing a vision or a desire or a goal of what the life that you truly want. And I think that those two orientations are like dramatically different, right? And that goes so in line with what we always say in the Exponential Entrepreneur, which is to understand this transformative truth, which is that exponential growth, financial growth, business growth, personal growth, all of this growth always starts within. And I think what you're saying is that with the daily interactions of the concepts and the criteria and the orientations and all of these different topics that we talk about in PPM with personal development, then you go out into your daily life and you say, okay, how do I implement this one thing today? Right.
Messy.
And this is how,
yeah. Looking messy, being messy with it, looking stupid, failing, stumbling. Like, let's not disregard the struggle that is. Like, I did it this way and I feel this way and I want, I know a lot of my conversations lately with you have been in that place, but don't get it twisted. It's not this fairy tale. It is a decision, and it is an astonishing amount of growth, because it's not about how you are perceived outside. It's about the strength that it takes for you to decide inside that you're going to show up and you're going to try to work on those things.
I just love that decision just because it's a daily choice, right? And sometimes it's a monthly choice or a weekly choice or a yearly choice. And one thing that really was impressive for me since I met you is that your answer to the opportunity or invitation for growth was always yes. But I always yes. It's like, there's this workshop. Yes, I'm going to go. There's this opportunity. Yes, I am in. There is this, you joined this PPM program. I am there every single day. I think that you've missed very, very few days. And I remember you being in PPM, raising your hand to ask a question, and you were outside of a courthouse. And you said, we're on break and I might have to hang up very soon if they call me in, but I am struggling with HB, A, B, C, D, E. I don't remember exactly what it was. I need help. Please get my head straight before I go back into the courthouse. And could you speak to that experience of, being able to, number one, recognize that you need help. Number two, make the decision to show up every day, and then apply what you learn every day with these very small baby steps, incremental changes.
We always talk about in PPM that big goal. And a lot of the, I think, concerns that people can have when individuals are talking about a big goal is the things that societally we've been taught that a big goal does, right? It makes you greedy. It makes you a bad person. It makes you these things. And as you are like leaping on faith, a lot of leaps of faith, asking questions and hearing yourself say it, like the process of me being in a moment where my higher self just needs me not to blank it out, just needs me not to suppress it, just needs me not to succumb to pressure, right? I find my answer when I speak sometimes. I get clarity of thought, maybe when we are sharing and we're having a connection, especially when you take seriously this personal development. Small caveat, personal development is not dependent on Erica. It's not dependent on anyone else. It's dependent on me. And so in those moments where I know I am pressing down and I am like trying to not do, speaking is one of the most powerful things I can do for myself to bring it up and to bring the clarity into it and not to move with confusion. I am someone, if you hear me confused, it's going to be a little bit off the trail. Something off the trail is coming. And I know that about myself.
A little rambling.
And so in those moments where I need to have clarity inside of me, those are moments where I'm going to bring up these thoughts and these things that are interfering with where I want my true self to be. And we're going to flesh it all the way out. These thoughts are not going to be allowed to just come in and, plant themselves and just attack me. And I'm in here by myself feeling alone. And so I think it comes from mentorship. I think it comes from, good relationships, reciprocal, positive relationships. But you have to be intentional and know yourself when that's happening. And I've always known that about myself.
I love that. We were talking in PPM last week, I think, or no, it was that Friday of the LQM when we were meeting. And for those of you listening, if you don't know what the LQM is, it's just a members only event that is called the Live Quarterly Meeting. That's an event. We have over 500 people in the event every single quarter. And the Friday before the Live Quarterly Meeting, we do this one-day event for Practical Profitable Mindset Program. And it was there we were talking about how nothing exists if we are not in relationship, right? You just mentioned it right now, and it got me to remember that. It's like we are in relationship all the time. In relationship with our environment, in relationship with other people, in relationship with our clothes, in relationship with our body, in relationship with our food, in relationship with the policeman on the street, in relationship in the courthouse. Like everything happens in relationship. And I love that you just mentioned that how powerful it is to allow yourself to have a space, a community where you can go in and kind of recharge the batteries and get the clarity that you need. Then you can go out into the world and fight the battles that you need to fight, especially in a profession like, being a lawyer. But we all have to fight our own battles, right? On every single day. So how important is that community to bring the clarity?
We're colleagues, and I think in law, right? We know lawyers believe that they're colleagues. But in personal development, you're some steps in front of me because of experience, but we're colleagues in personal development. And I think that when individuals come with that viewpoint, if they want to be a part of a community, you come with the viewpoint that you have experiences that speak to a lot of the concepts that we continue to strengthen our muscles on, and that you're a part of a community that's just dedicated to not living this life in blindness and bringing up, the things that blind us from what we know our intentions really, what we want them really to be. And so that's what I think PPM is to me.
Yeah, this interaction in relationship again that we're creating here in this beautiful space got me to remember very, very early on in my own entrepreneurial journey. I was listening to something, reading something, and then this woman, or maybe I was at an event. I don't remember exactly. I do remember who she is. I don't remember her name. I have her image in my mind. And she said something that around the lines of most people live a life of quiet desperation. And that really kind of, sank in me. And I was like, oh, maybe that is where I have been living, because I really would like to create these things and do these things or have this business or help people in this way or whatever your own version of creation is, but I haven't done it. And because I haven't done it, then I am I very often in this place of just quiet desperation. And what you said, it reminded me that it was like, how powerful is that moment when you just have this wake up moment. And then you say, well, is this how I'm going to live the rest of my life? And so many people out there, and most likely some people that are listening, not everyone, but some of them there's something they want to create. There's something they want to do. There's something they would like to change. They would like to change their personal relationship. They would like to change their financial position. They would like to change their health, maybe their profession, maybe their wherever they work. Maybe they want to start a business, and yet they are not doing it. And that leads to this space of quiet desperation. And when I introduced you, one of the things that you told me is that you said that now your true definition of success, which in itself speaks about your own personal transformation in the way that you see things, it's not only about the number of dollars that you can make or the number of this or that or the size of the team or any of that, but is, you said, having the courage to build something great and the discipline to know when to move. So would you talk a little bit about that courage to once you decide that you want something, how do you get that courage to actually build something great?
I think that courage is something that if you use it wrong throughout your life, it's one of the biggest things that may depress you, right? You have the courage to do something and you don't take all of the reasonable, proper steps to prepare for that thing, right? And you fail, right? And the next time you do it, you again don't take any of the proper steps to do the thing, and then you fail. And so associating courage, that way you start to associate courage with failure. And what I've learned is that I can have courage and it fails. But if I have courage and it fails after diligent steps and I've gone up the ladder 5 out of the 7 steps, right? Or 5 out of the 10 steps, I just didn't know that there were steps 6 through 10. That is different than failing over and over again and not even recognizing that there are additional steps that have to be taken. And so in having courage, it's to having the discipline to know that continuing the process of stepping and continuing to move through that problem is very, very important. So the courage is there, but in the discipline, when failure occurs, my courage is in my discipline now, and my courage is not in either it being a success or a failure. That gives me permission to fail, gives me permission to be in reality of what it is to move from point A to B. It gives me the pleasure of knowing that my growth was my own.
Oh, yeah.
Of knowing that my choices were my own. And knowing that growth is not one of the biggest things, that the lessons that I've learned recently is the destination isn't to be lazy or to then not work or then to not have problems or then to not have to worry about anything. The goal is to build the muscles so that you can continue to grow and to dream more. But if you don't use that feeling of courage with discipline, wanting more is to want to do less. And that is not the reality of what defines a great life. So connecting courage to discipline connects courage to a life where I'll still have to have courage and I will still build courage, instead of I'll eventually have a life where I don't need courage at all. You always need that. You always need discipline. It's more courage and it's more discipline that you need later. And being on that journey, it requires you to be in the orientation that you're creating a life where you want more courage and you want more discipline. And it's different. It's not, I'm talking to you in relation to you, realizing that this is an anomaly of thought, right? But practically we can think about it. But when, again, you're building that muscle and you see it, that's when the desire comes, right? It's a different, a lot of people say, I don't want to do that. That's a lot. I don't want to do this. That's a lot. And that's the end of the analysis. But to start to open your eyes into what discipline and courage looks like, and to start to have that desire, you can't just expect that to happen from day one, right? And that's a part of that buildup of being on this journey of exponential growth is that you then want the things that you've never wanted before.
Yes. I love that. We're coming to an end here. So I'm going to ask you in a minute to share with us one or two of the takeaways that you would like the audience to stay with. But I do want to, before we do that, I do want to mention one thing that, again, your comments prompted, which is, I think there's this concept that I love of the concept of failing forward. When I heard this, I heard failing upwards. I was like, what does that mean? And as we started dissecting it and thinking about it, it's like there's no failures. There's no failures. I don't remember who is the personal development person that says this. In life, you're either learning or winning. That's all. That's the only two options. You only win or learn. And I want to really leave everyone during this, for this particular interview of this episode, to really think about, the real failure in life, I think, is not to have the courage to try to become who you want to become. You might not do that thing or the other thing. Maybe you want to make 500,000 or 1 million or 10 million. Those are just numbers. But the real hero's journey is to have the courage to actually lead in the direction of becoming who you want to become, to be the biggest, best expression of your own self for what is important to you. So I just wanted to leave the audience with that, and the concept of failing upwards. And then for you, Josephia, what would you like to leave the audience with?
So there's this, it's my favorite saying from you, right? And I think it goes to being in relation with people, and the muscle that I'm building with that, which is everyone has a valid and profound reason to do everything that they do. And this is a concept that, it's a regular one that comes up, right? Because we're in relation with people a lot, and the relationships that I have with people are many, are they're many, and it is a journey for myself for them not to be a reflection of me. A lot of times for me, my journey has been, how am I affecting a person? What am I doing to that person? How did I do something for that person not to, or to do? And, everyone in their journey has something that helps them to, again, come out of that victim mindset that I've done something and I'm a victim here. And the tool of everyone has a valid and profound reason to do everything they do. It doesn't make me the center of everything. And it gets me curious. It gets me wondering. It gets me exploring. It gets me asking the questions well sometimes and not so well other times, right? Because that's my journey, right? My journey is right now is building the muscle of communicating with people in a way that allows their truth and their perspective to come through. And at that time, for me to make a decision as to how I want to be in relationship with them. And that is a part of the stream of my life. And it's a part of a journey that I want to share, which is, the personal development part of it is not suppressing conversations with people when you're in relationships with them. It's not always saying this is going to be a waste, or if I lose this relationship with a person, my life is going to be, or, well, if I just do this and maneuver in this way, right? This is going to maintain this relationship and it's going to be what it's going to be. And that is one of the most desperate downfalls, I think, that we have as people, because so much of your life becomes shifting who you are to be in relationships with people that you may need to sunset, have their fall, their winter, their spring, or their summer, right? And being more in charge of those seasons with people is you bringing more of yourself to every relationship and having the faith that the cards will fall as they may.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I just want to leave the audience with one thing extra to what you said. And I'm 100% agree with what you said. Every single individual has the most profound and valid reasons to do what they do or feel what they feel. And that doesn't mean that you have to tolerate it. But you can understand why a person does this or does that or does the other, and then be curious, like you said, and still you can say, and this is not for me. Right? I can respect you, I can understand you, but I need to understand you and respect you from a distance. And that opens up the possibility for change in the other person. If there was going to be ever any change, maybe that's when is going to happen. But I don't want people to live with the idea that means that you need to tolerate what other people are doing. So I wish I could stay here for another 2 hours. I really do. Thank you so much for being part of this episode, and for being part of PPM, and for being part of HTM, and for being part of our lives. And I'm very much looking forward to continue to see your growth and to be part of that journey. Thank you so much, Josephia.
Thank you, Erica.
Thank you for listening to the Exponential Entrepreneur Podcast. We encourage you to take action on it today. Share what you've learned with another entrepreneur. Sign up for our newsletter to get bonus content you won't get anywhere else at exponentialentrepreneur.com, and subscribe to the Exponential Entrepreneur Podcast to receive the next episode. Until next time, keep breaking through limiting beliefs and growing exponentially.